Just like when you dream, sometimes you can't recall the dream. They are like vague shadows in the mind. You remember you dreamt, but you can't quite recall for sure what actually happened. When you are born into this body, your awareness isn't the same as when you are an adult. So it is realistic to assume that because of those early years, and the fact our memory and mind wasn't developed to the same degree as adults, we therefore can't recall whether there was something before we entered this life itself. As adults, it seems it's only through our intuitive faculty we sense and become aware of increasingly more aspects of this universe that are hidden from normal perceptions. This is demonstrated by the fact that many ancient texts talked about certain aspects of the universe that they couldn't actually verify with any physical objects, like scientists can do in this day and age. And strangely enough, some spiritual claims from the old ages are now confirmed to a certain extent by actual scientific research. Take for example the concept of one substance from which all things originate, and we are all one. This is, as far as I know, of Hindu origin. In this day and age, science tells us that the space we think is empty really isn't so empty and is filled with dark energy. So they confirmed it's true, there does seem to exist a substance throughout the universe to which everything is connected and essentially is one giant coherent whole. In the old days they couldn't physically confirm this, yet they made the claim. Many centuries later, science proves that it is right in their own way. In other words, if you look around you right now and you see empty space between physical objects, it's mind-boggling to accept the fact that that space in particular is not really empty at all, but it seems to be empty to our physical eyes. How could these ancient people know about stuff that they weren't able to prove physically? Their intuition led them to those revelations. That is how we can and should operate ourselves. We should learn to work with our own intuition so deeper aspects of life can reveal themselves to us. Now, the difficulty in working with your intuition lies in direct correlation to the degree you are hypnotized by the physical appearances that surround you. In other words, by whether you believe everything you can observe is the only thing that exists or not. Intuition deals with the invisible side of life, and you were given an intuition for that specific reason. It is also beautifully connected. The universe, or whether you prefer calling it God, seemed to really make sure you wouldn't be doomed for eternity, so you were given the power to discern the truth of your own existence by mental faculties, such as the one I'm talking about right now. However, we are going to go a bit deeper here, and I will give you 3 aspects of consciousness that can only be grasped by the person who is looking for it. For anyone that is not looking into the workings of their own mind, all spiritual teachings seem absurd and even nonsense. Step 1 deals with the invisible cause behind the results in your own life. Even though other people around the globe might do horrifying things to others, we have to clearly remember that nobody else is responsible for our state of mind, and we need to dare take responsibility to direct it. The mind, consciousness, awareness, the soul, whatever you prefer calling it, is invisible to naked eye. So right there we are dealing with the invisible cause behind the visible aspects of our life. The second step deals with the creative process. It deals with the inspiration and actions that arise out of this consciousness of ours. The third step deals with the results, with what is visible to us and what we consider reality. It is after dissecting these 3 aspects we will discover what I mean when I say people live under a hypnotic spell, since most of their attention is only focused on the third step, paying no real attention to the second, let alone the first step in applying our minds to overcome all obstacles we might face throughout our lifetime. Your conscious mind possesses 6 distinct faculties that we want to study. They are perception, memory, willpower, intuition, reason, and imagination. Which of these is the greatest power of all? Imagination. For imagination is a mental faculty that operates independent of circumstances. Though your reasoning faculty is used to think, in many cases we use it to quite literally create reasons of why something can or cannot be done based on the observation of our senses alone. Instead, we want our reasoning mind to become influenced by the imagination itself, For it is through your imagination you become aware of something you would like to achieve in life. So my goal is to indicate to you, even though some of my lectures might seem very metaphysical and spiritual, that they can still be applied to get physical things for yourself. If that is what you desire, then you should have it. For if your physical life is not to your liking, everything becomes out of balance and life indeed becomes a struggle instead of a wonderful adventure. Now let us look at step 1, the invisible cause. I will go straight to the core. Imagination creates your reality. Are you ready to accept my claim? If your imagination creates your reality, it must mean wonderful things are possible for you. At least in potentiality, they are. Now let me give you a reason for my claim. We have to remember that in the science of quantum physics, they talk about something called the zero-point field. I'm not a scientist, nor would I ever claim to be one. So for simplicity's sake, let us boil down their studies to the idea that there's a field of infinite possibilities in which this universe exists. What in us puts us in touch with the realm of infinite possibilities? Imagination. The only limitation on imagination seems to be the one we impose on it, for I cannot imagine something that is unimaginable to my own awareness. This also shows that the advances humanity makes comes out of the domain of imagination and can only arise to the degree that we are ready to even discover what lies hidden inside of it. What does it mean for you in your life? You can simply take any goal you would like to achieve in this world and imagine its successful outcome. You can actually use this faculty of your own mind to see what it would be like were your dream now a reality. As you look with the eyes of imagination, you might think to yourself, how could this possibly improve my reality? I'm looking at something inside my mind. It is not visible. I can't touch it physically. I can't share it with my friends or family. How could this ever serve any purpose? Here we have to grasp step 2 and step 3, for they ultimately form a coherent whole. Connect imagination with the sense of feeling. You are an emotional being and can go through emotional states. Again, emotions are invisible forces, for you can't point at it directly. You can only subjectively experience them, just like imagination and thoughts are subjective experiences. Do you know what you would like to have and achieve in this world? Simply imagine what your life would look like, and as you are imagining it, ask yourself, how would I feel if I were now the man or woman I would like to be? Remember what I said about the reasoning mind. It will try and find reasons and explanations for as to why this would work, but we want the reasoning mind to obey the imaginary powers of the mind itself. So even though your reasoning mind may tell you that you cannot achieve what you imagine, I ask of you to simply imagine it regardless, and dare to assume you already have achieved it. An assumption can only come into place if you actually ask yourself how you would feel if you had achieved your dream. So if your dream is wealth, how would you feel if you were wealthy? If your dream is a wonderful relationship, how would you feel if you were now together with a man or woman? If your dream is health, how would you feel if you were healthy? So that is what I personally do. If I want to achieve something, I first have to imagine what that achievement is all about. Second, I invoke an emotional response from within my own being. Emotional states influence the subconscious mind. You hear people talk about, oh, I must have some hidden subconscious beliefs making my life harder than it should be. Well, you can change them if you simply approach it with the method I'm describing here. But will your reasoning mind interfere constantly and try to figure out why this works and how it works? Forget it. You are called upon to trust in yourself, and the best way to do it is by using your imagination to enter into the states of your fulfilled desires. Combining willful application of your imagination while letting it influence you emotionally is working with the invisible cause that determines the results of your life. The second step deals with the creative process. Observe carefully and you can see no results can come into being without us or someone else acting in a certain way. Most people try to change the results in their lives by forcing themselves to act differently. They literally, with willpower, try to force something to change. They are working against themselves. It always makes life more difficult than it needs to be. If you have this tendency, go back to step 1 and apply your imagination. If you can clearly imagine a certain outcome in your mind's eye and you become possessed by the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the actions you'll be involved in become what I prefer to call inspired actions. Your physical activity becomes based on inspired ideas and hunches that flow into your mind because of the imaginary state in which you dwell. If you doubt my claim, I can only tell you that I'm doing this myself and it works. In fact, me sharing this information is part of an imaginary state, and as long as I dwell in that state mentally and emotionally, I am compelled to write certain words about certain subjects and share them with whoever wants to hear them. Look around you. All physical objects we have are made out of the imagination of mankind. All results in your life can be traced back to how you use your imagination, and negative states of the mind are simply negative concepts of imagination, for it has no rule that says, you may only imagine lovingly, or else it won't work. No, you can imagine doing something absolutely horrible, and depending on how emotionally intense you are and connected are to that imaginary state, it will ultimately find expression within your life. You can hear serial killers sometimes admit they imagine doing what they are doing. Likewise, you can hear people of great success or great wealth hear that they first imagined achieving it before they actually achieved it. So it goes with everything in life. Are you willing to accept it? The true difficulty lies not in our ability to imagine, for we are imaginative by nature. Our biggest struggle lies in whether we can actually believe in what we are imagining. Try it out for yourself. Imagine your life being exactly the way you would love it to be. There might be a tendency to reason, that would be too good to be true, or there's no way my life could ever become that wonderful. Well, I'm here to tell you it can. I can put myself into the imaginary state of a musician and music starts to flow, even though I cannot read musical notes. I don't understand them, yet I can still make music. What causes it to happen? My imagination. I dare to assume I can make music. I see in my mind's eye what sort of musician I would like to be, and then I let myself become consumed by the vision. A little while ago I uploaded 2 short horror films. Let me obviously point out, nothing is perfect. We will always desire to do it better, but let's not forget that the movies and TV series you observe with your eyes are all creations of imagination. Now take the way they create movies and reflect it back to how your life works. A movie is based on a story. A story is a vision within the mind. Your life is also based on a mental construction, and it is constructed through the imagination either consciously or unconsciously. When I use the term unconsciously, I mean the fact that most people let others determine what they will or will not imagine and think about. Turn on the news, hear all the horrifying stuff that goes on in the world. Will you let them control what you think? Will you allow those horrifying concepts to create unnerving visions within your own imagination? That is what happens to many people, and they are not aware they are using the greatest power they were given to entertain negativity, the greatest power being their imagination. In your case, you want to clearly grasp that your dreams, whatever they are imaginary states in which you can mentally and emotionally dwell. When I use the word dwell, I mean the idea of acting from that state of mind. So I don't care what your dream is. If you can actually be absorbed in the dream, you will notice your thoughts and ideas start to change, and as you take action on those new ideas that came to your consciousness because of the imaginary state in which you operate, you will see results start to change. Now that is part of the last step. Step 3. The physical results. And yet many people look at their physical results, accept them as the only reality, and feel incapable of changing or improving them. Step 3 shows us that in order to improve something, we have to outgrow it altogether. We cannot become free from addiction, for example, as long as we keep indulging in the addiction. So a person might want to quit drinking alcohol. They are aware that it is what they want, but they still indulge in drinking physically, so they are unable to outgrow that concept of themselves. Ultimately, that is what you want to do. Outgrow your current concept of yourself, so you can embody a new and better version of yourself. If you had achieved your goal of wealth, success, relationships, or health, wouldn't you in reality be a new and better version of yourself? Since that is true, where do we discover aspects through which we may outgrow our current circumstances? We do it by using our imagination. Now you don't learn something by simply listening to it. You learn through actual experience, and what I'm talking about is based on my own experiences. That is why I don't care if you don't believe me on these claims, for I have clear evidence that it in fact does work, and does improve the quality of my physical life. I'm sharing this with you so you can test it out for yourself. Let's put the pieces of this puzzle together. Step 1. We have to know exactly what we want, though there is always a tendency for the reasoning mind to interfere, Clearly understand you have an imagination that must be directed willfully. And we have to do it ourselves. We can go beyond these tendencies of doubting and worries. We simply look straight into the world of our own fulfilled desires. Do not imagine without invoking an emotional response. It is pointless. So never forget to consider how you actually would feel were your dream now a reality. Consider it deeply. Step 2. You don't have to worry about what you should or should not do. The ideas floating around in that mind of yours will automatically transform if you stay focused on the imaginary state you want to turn into a reality. As long as your willpower is aimed at your vision, you will pierce through old ideas and start to connect with new ideas on a different frequency of energy. Step 3. Learn to look at your world not with the eyes of ignorance, but with the eyes of awareness. All that I see comes forth out of one source, a substance of infinite possibilities. I can never fathom the sheer wisdom that had to be behind the entire creation of the universe itself. But at least I can and should learn to grasp the fact that my imagination is an invisible substance out of which I myself can create things that can be shared with humanity. This ultimately causes you to operate from a different perspective. Instead of letting the physical world control your mind starts to control your physical world. So it is very important you discover this from personal experience. And the only way you will ever prove my words to yourself is by applying them and testing them out. Even though they might seem insane or too good to be true, still try it out. Imagine what you want, or imagine you want to disprove what I am saying, and you will find out that either in the proving or disproving you always find evidence that it works both ways. Imagination does not have any rules placed upon it. You may imagine limiting states of being, or you may imagine total freedom for yourself and the way you want to live your life. It is up to us what we will do. I simply hope you will use these ideas to achieve your wildest dreams. If you still have questions, feel free to ask them below and be sure to listen to future lectures, for they are always leading you back to yourself. I am not preaching the message that you should bow down to others and should seek out others in desperation. I'm preaching that you yourself are much more powerful than your ego mind can ever grasp. We don't have to be very smart to realize this. Can you explain how the whole universe came into being? Nobody can. Regardless, we are still here. Well, maybe you cannot explain how your imagination creates your reality. Yet you can still prove to yourself that it works, if you are willing to give it a try. For just like the ancient writers of spiritual potential, they used their intuition to connect with a deeper level of awareness, to reveal marvelous aspects of our own existence. So it is with your imagination. You can't see it with your eyes, but the power of imagination will reveal itself to you if you apply it willfully.